right, so we got a good number going. Everybody else will kind of trickle in. I see some new faces. Hi, Paul. Never seen you before. Nice to see you and meet you. Welcome. So anyway, what I was saying is we're going to get started with our tasting. This is Chris Christensen from Bodkin Wines. He is a incredible winemaker, which you'll get to taste 2 of his wines tonight. You'll also get to hear his story, which, you know, is always the best part for me. Some tastings, we just do tastings, but sometimes we have wine and culture chats, and this is what this will be. Oh, wow, it's a lot of things going on tonight. I thought it wasn't me though this time. So let's just jump right into it, Mr. Christensen. I do have some, I have formulated some questions for you. Are you scared?
No. Well, if I were scared, I'd just get out the club right now. I'd sign off if I was scared.
You should be. So, a little resume on Chris. He is a self-made winemaker, self-taught winemaker. He created the first sparkling Sauvignon Blanc in the US. That's right, a Black man did that. And like I said, he's also alumni of 40 Under 40. He was in the 2020 class with me. So welcome. Excited to have you here. So let's just get into it. Before we get into the wines, we're going to talk a little bit to Chris and, you know, hear his story. So one of the first things I want to talk about is your childhood. Like, where did you grow up? What was that like as a biracial child?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. Like, I'm super excited part of this event, and you know, definitely rolling deep today. So, man, it's awesome to see, you know, so many faces out here wanting to hear my story. I'm flattered by it. But no, growing up, I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You know, we don't get to pick where we were born. You know, it's far from any kind of urban metropolis or, you know, mecca of African Americans. It's just the second largest city in the state of Iowa. Which is telling you a lot, you know, like 120,000 people were there when I was growing up. And yeah, you know, it was a pretty unique experience, you know, growing up in Iowa, since, you know, my mom's family had been there since the 1860s. Like by way of Canada, came from Scotland. And, you know, my dad's family's been in this country considerably longer, you know, like so many of us, you know, is chattel ostensibly. So, you know, it was pretty unique, you know, growing up in Iowa and being mixed race, you know, particularly in the early 80s. You know, I'm 41 years old now. So, you know, it was a different era, you know, at the time. There wasn't much in the way of African Americans, let alone people who, you know, really didn't fit in either box. You know, you check multiple boxes. So there were even fewer people who were mixed race at the time. So, you know, it was different, but it was all I knew. I knew growing up, you know, especially since my dad wasn't part of my life, and he being African American. You know, when I was growing up, he wasn't around much, so I was largely raised by my mom and her family, who were all like the whitest white people ever to be white. You know, like, you know, it's true, in the whitest place of all the white people. So. Yeah, you know, it was just different. It was just different growing up. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't really know, you know, anything about it, but you know, you learn to be aware of things, you know, like race and all that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So with that, being aware of race, did you identify as Black, considering all of those factors?
No. I mean, and still to this day, you know, I still consider myself being mixed race. Part of you know, kind of what I was taught and learned growing up is like, this is your heritage, and it's different than a lot of people's, because you're drawing from 2 very different worlds, you know. And that was something that was really kind of coached up on, you know, as a kid, and that's how it was explained to me, and that's how I view it, that, you know, I'm as much, you know, Black as I am white, and technically, I took that DNA test and found out I'm actually less than 50% Black. So, but you know, culture was something that I was, you know, really, you know, raised to be aware of, that I'm, you know, going to be part of different worlds and have this, you know, kind of, you know, mixed race existence, and it's going to be different. So, you know, I was kind of prepared for it that way. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's all that I know. So,
Yeah, that's a unique perspective for sure. So did you have like when you said your father wasn't necessarily in like the early years, but I do remember talking to you a few weeks ago and you mentioned your dad. So when did that relationship mend and how did you heal it?
yeah, you know, hey, I'll dive right into this one. It was actually wine that brought me and my dad back together when I was 30. I was about 32 years old. You know, I met, you know, my folks got divorced when I was like 9 months old. We were living in Chicago at the time because that's where my dad's from, you know, originally, and my mom, dad divorced, moved back to Iowa and was raised there. You know, I saw my dad once when I was 12. You know, came out and met him, and I talked to him for the last time when I was 16. And you know, I had some words for him. I told him to get lost, and you know, I didn't talk to him again until I was 33. So it was kind of, you know, I mean, that's the kind of way life was. And you know, you know, I was pretty open to it. You know, my dad's a good guy. You know, he was just a dude from circumstances. You know, he was born to two 17-year-olds in East St. Louis, Illinois, back in 1948. So, you know, my dad's had a very like tough and arduous life. And as I became older and I could really recognize that, you know, the reasons why he wasn't part of my life really didn't, you know, have a lot to do with so much with, you know, me. Like I always knew my dad loved me. I just knew that, like, kind of as a function of, I learned to grow and understand that, you know, as a function of how his life was and the life experience that he had, it was hard for him to be part of my life. So
Yeah,
I became open to that as I became older. And
yeah.
I remember it was like February, what was it? It was February 11th, back in 2013. I got a call from someone in Chicago being like, "Hey, I just placed a wine order online. Is there any, I really want to have this for Valentine's Day. Is there any way we can get it there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, with expedited shipping, I can get you your wine." And you know, I was just being on the phone with somebody and was like, "So how'd you come to hear about Bodkin wines?" And she's like, "Well, I'm a friend of your father's." And it was just like, I'm
Wow.
like, "Well, yeah." I mean, it just totally just out of the blue. And it's like, I was like, well, you know, kind of put on the spot. And I remember, you know, telling this lady, I was like, "Well, you know, Sharian, if you see my dad, you know, let him know I like to speak with him and I've got nothing but love for him." She goes, "Well, I'll
Aw.
see him at church on Sunday. And you know, I'll let you know then." And, you know, Sunday comes and she calls and says, "Hey, your dad wants to speak with you too." And sorry. Uh so you know, and she's like, "Yeah, so he'll give you a call in an hour." And you know, sure enough, and my dad was a call and was like, "Hey, it's your dad." And I was like, "It's Greg." And I'm like, "Hey, how's it going, man? How's life been?" And you know, it was really cool to be able to have that opportunity. You know, like I'd kind of you know, at that point, up to that point in time, I'd kind of accepted the fact that I may never hear from him again. And you know, it's hard for me to reach out to him because I was like, I'm not sure if I could really endure being rejected by my father again.
Yeah.
You know, and for him it was hard because he's like, "Man, I don't, you know, want my kid to read me the riot act or, you know, tell me to get lost." You know, so it's just a tough thing. So kind of through an intermediary, this woman who was his high school sweetheart and his fiance too was able to kind of get us back together, which was really cool. You know, and we've spent the past 8 years, you know, really making up for a lot of lost time in that. And it's been really cool, like you know, getting to know his side of the family and getting to know my cousins and my aunties and cousins. And you know, you know, I got to meet my grandma for the first time before she passed. You know, I was the only one of her 9 grandchildren and great grandchildren she never met. So it's been like a lot of healing, you know, and it's been really important for me also as this kind of deals is kind of like parlays into race. Um, you know, like it's been really cool to get in touch with this aspect of my heritage, my history, and like really feel this really strong, a much stronger connection that I've been developing over the past, you know, 8 9 years
Yeah.
with my roots, with my history, with being African American. You know, that was something that was, you know, it was just like a big question mark for me. I didn't really understand how I fit into it all. And it's been really wonderfully healing for me, you know.
Yeah.
It's been really beautiful for me
That's
to
so
actually be in a
beautiful.
position where I can talk freely about race and ethnicity and, you know, talk about my story and be comfortable telling it. You know, it's been
Yeah.
really wonderful for that. like even outside the context of wine. It's just helped me grow and mature as a person, and also in turn be, a better father to my own children too. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so beautiful. And like, I feel like we all need a drink now, because
how about that muscat?
let's get into the first wine, and we'll talk about your winemaking journey and how do you end up being self-taught. So can we talk about the first wine first? What is it? What was your technique with it? Inspiration, any kind of notes you want to give?
Yeah, so the first one here I have, and if you guys can start out with the white, I recommend this order. I mean, be yourself, do your own thing, but kick it off with the Muscat Canelli, the Erin. Kind of a weird name and all that, but
Can you show the bottle? A lot of people didn't get to see the bottle. I don't know if you have it next to you.
Dun, 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 dun. I have mine in an ice bucket here, so there we go. So there it is.
It smells amazing. Okay, so before we get into technique, Chris, what the f is with all of this medieval shit?
Medieval
Seriously,
stuff,
like,
right?
I need the first question. What is Bodkin, and what's with the medieval stuff? What's a journeyman? You call yourself a journeyman. You have some explaining to do.
Yeah, no, it's just so I'm a huge nerd. Like I've been hardcore nerding since 3/30/81, since I was born. I've had all these dorky interests and pursuits, and I grew up shooting archery. I started shooting archery when I was 10, like some real Iowa shit right there, So yeah, I started shooting archery when I was 10. I got into it, and that was the same year that Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie dropped. So I was just like into Robin Hood, like into archery, into medieval history, right? It was just kind of an interest of mine, and I stuck with it. And then I kind of came up into high school, and we got into with my AP English teacher, dude by the name of Jason Alberti. Like he was like a theater actor outside of being a teacher and all this stuff, and he was super big into Shakespeare. And we started reading the play Henry V, which is one of his more famous plays pretty much about the kingship, the first, beginning of the kingship of Henry V and the Battle of Agincourt, where like 5,000 peasant bowmen of England beat back 30,000 of the wealthiest and best armored men in France. This kind of total, number one seed getting upset by a 16 seed kind of upset. And Shakespeare writes this play about it, and it just kind of captivated my mind that like this army triumphed against all odds, led by their 28-year-old king. And I was like, this has got to be some bullshit, like. And like I pull up, and I start to get into this. Is before I had to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm dating myself.
Before the Google.
Yeah, there was no Google. This was like 1998. There was no Google. There was barely an internet. So and looking it up, and I'm like, dang, this battle actually happened. It just kind of stuck with me, and the great money line from the play is, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. He who sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be narrow so vile. The morrow will gentle his condition, and gentlemen, now a home, a bed in England shall hold their manhoods, shall find themselves accursed and hold their manhoods cheap, whilst any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. And that was the band of brothers speech. And I was like, man, Shakespeare had some hard bars. Like he set the quill on fire with that one in my mind. That was really, it's a story about, about overcoming the odds, and if you go out there and you fight and you take what's yours, and everyone's just got to sit down and shut up, and no one will ever be able to take that away from you. That's kind of what it boils down to. Yeah. So, by the time, and this is kind of an apt metaphor for so many aspects of my life, Yeah. I'm by nature, I'm the fish that swims upstream. Like I only do things the hard way, the pain in the ass way. Tell me something, oh, this can't be done. I'm like, hold my beer, like you're never going to get into Stanford. I'm like, okay, try me, and I had the opportunity to go to Stanford after high school, which was pretty cool, something I really in my mind on. You'll never make it as a rower. You're 5'9" and you're 5'10". Like, okay, I'm a varsity letter winner in rowing there. You know, like I didn't get to choose which half of being black I got. You know, my dad was the first one in his family to go to college. He was one of those guys back in the 60s that had like 4.4 speed, you know, big playability, breakaway speed. I'm like, nah, dude, you get boat rowing from your mom's Scandinavian side of the family, dog. That's what we got. We got your crew.
So
um,
I've been reading the comments though, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is vacation. This is very tropical." So talk to us about the white wine now that I've harassed you about the name.
Yeah, I know. Bodkin's a type of arrowhead used with fantastic success by the peasant bowmen of England against the armed nobility of France during the 100 Years' War. You know, because anytime you get to take a shot at the French in this business, you got to go for it. So it ties in my love of medieval history, the Battle of Agincourt, and you know, being in the wine business as someone who grew up, you know, the son of a single parent teacher mom. You know, and I'm in a business that is working with people who got all this generational wealth and knowledge and know-how and infinite resources, and I'm fighting my own way through it. So I thought Bodkin was a very apt name for the brand, because I got to tell the story so many times over the past 10 years, and I still get chills telling it. So I think I did a good job naming it.
I think you do. It's very
a lot of weird medieval history and pictures on the labels and all that. It's all throughout the brand. Erin is a term for egg. It's the Middle English term for eggs, plural. And it was a joke that I really wanted to make, because I fermented this wine, this Muscat Canelli, which is the grape. I fermented in these concrete egg-shaped tanks, because what it does, it adds a lot of mouthfeel and texture and width to the wine. People always have this idea, that, oh, Muscat's got to be sweet. Muscat's got to be sweet, sweet Muscat. And I was like, well, what if we did it without the sweetness, And that was part of my plan for this wine. I started making Muscat Canelli from this vineyard back in 2012. So
where's the vineyard?
Pardon?
Where's the vineyard?
It's in Upper Lake, California. This is little Mayberry looking town, like on the north side of Clear Lake. Just kind of in the middle of California, in the middle of the North Coast. This vineyard just has a small amount of it. It's where I buy a lot of my Sauvignon Blanc from. They also have a small block of Muscat. So, a lot of people's experience with Muscats like Muscat, Moscato d'Asti, low alcohol or sparkling Muscat, or even pink sparkling Muscat. And these wines are typically sweet because the grape has a lot of naturally kind of sweet flavors. It's sweet without being sugary, and people take it a level up and have traditionally done as a sweeter wine. I wanted to kind of flip the script on that and do it as a dry wine. Back in college, I had a Muscat of Alsace. It's like a bone dry version of it, no sugar. And I thought this wine was like really, really cool. And it was one of the first wines I had that kind of got me into wine. I went to the wine store. I was on a date trying to pick up a bottle, impress a chick. And I was like, do you guys have anything that tastes like wine, but not too much like wine? And they pointed me to Muscat of Alsace, this Trimbach Muscat of Alsace. And this wine stuck with me, So 10 years later, I'm making my first one. And then 10 years after that, I'm making this one. So yeah, it's such a craft for it. So I think it's really nice to make a wine that doesn't have the sweetness that people typically associate with Muscat, and just kind of like break people's minds down about what Muscat is and isn't. That it can be a wine that's really sophisticated and luxurious and delicious and everything, without being sweet, So it was beautiful. I fermented in egg tanks, called it the egg, super original. I don't know. It made sense. I
actually think it's very creative. And if you know the history of like how you put together all of these medieval points and factoids and how important that is to you, right? Like it makes perfect sense. It goes right along with the brand and everything. So you are self-taught, right? So I have two questions. How did that happen? At what age, right, did you decide to move into the wine space and teach yourself how to make wine? Because you are an incredible winemaker.
Thank you.
And then how does a self-taught winemaker decide, I'm finna make America's first sparkling Sauvignon Blanc? And do you remember when I posted that on the Hue Society page, and like the comments, one of the guys was like, what does it matter? You remember the type of thing? I was like,
yeah. I'm like, show me. I'm like, show and prove. Like, show
Yeah,
and
yeah,
prove.
because he said you weren't the first or
Oh,
something like that, or
pull a
it's
bottle
not
out.
proven. Yeah.
Everyone's had 10 years to pull the bottle out that can contest this. I'm waiting for it. Like, I'm waiting. Like, wake me up when you find it. But yeah, it's no, people love it. People, I've been dealing with that from the beginning because people don't really see that coming, you know. I'm kind of at least starting out at this. I was like a no-name that worked at a bunch of no-name wineries. You know, like I don't have some great pedigree. My resume, like on paper, it is what it is. But I've never worked for anything big, great wineries or any of the great consultants for it. And it was just kind of a, you know, I was this kind of like outlier from outfield, from outside the outside. And not to mention, you know, I mean, people looked at me like I was a cellar worker. You know, I mean, here in California, most people think I'm Latino. They're like, hey, you look like my cousin who's Puerto Rican. And I'm like, yeah, you know, far from it, you know. I'm not Puerto Rican people, don't get me wrong. I'm just not genetically one of them. No disrespect to anybody on that. But yeah, you know, it's kind of something that comes from outside the mold. You know, that was a big thing. The first few years of it was like, they'll look at me like, are you the winemaker? And I'm like, yeah, I am. You know, even though, did you go to Davis? Like, no, I didn't, because that wasn't really an option for me. You know, I started out, I graduated from college in 2003. With a degree in data sciences, of all like inapplicable things, or it's what's now known as data sciences. It was called something different at the time, because this is, you know, that was 20 years ago. Wasn't my thing then. But I really wanted to get in the wine industry. You know, it was my first time in California. I thought it'd be a fun thing to do, was like work at a winery for the first couple years, and, you know, not spend my early 20s in a cubicle with a Windsor tied noose around my neck, laughing at Dilbert being turned an ashen shade of gray under phosphorescent lighting. You know, it's not, I was like, this isn't for me. Maybe I'll go work at a winery. This is like 22 years. Work at a winery for a few years. Wine's fun. I enjoy. It's a cool thing to do. I'll be able to have this cocktail party knowledge. It'll make me interesting. You know, it'll help me like feign sophistication in a way that, you know, some kid from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, isn't. So that was kind of what got me into it. And it turns out Ernest Gallo III is a Stanford alum, and he's also a rower too. So I got my first job working at Gallo Sonoma, like right out of college. Was my first job, and yeah, you know, I worked in the lab there, and I thought that was cool. I worked at a number of smaller wineries after that, Meeker, Moritz, and Michel Schlumberger, Armida Winery twice, all here in the Dry Creek Valley of Sonoma County. Then I got a real job working for Wachovia for 1 year, 1 month, and 19 days, working on the mathematical model for repossessing people's cars during the Great Recession.
Oh God.
Yep. That was my job, was like how to build a better mathematical model for predicting automotive delinquency. The data sciences. Right.
Okay.
That was crushing. 1 year, 1 month, and 19 days of that bullshit. And I was like, yeah, I need to get back into wine. Yeah, like miss me with this. If this is what making it America is like working for a company that's like trampling these people like when they're losing no, this is some bullshit, straight up. So I was like, this isn't for me. Like corporate America life is. And it's like, well, if I'm gonna go back to wine, then I need to get really serious about it. Because before I'd been working like doing cellar work, cleaning tanks, dragging hoses, being super hands-on with the process. And I was like, well, I need to get serious about learning how to make wine. Like that's, you know, make a real career out of this. And this is no disrespect to people who do cellar work, but I was like, the part of me that's loves to learn and challenge and grow and is creative just wasn't challenged by that set of skills. So at that point in time in my career, I really couldn't afford to go back to school. Like it would have been a lot of prereqs because I have a BA, you need a BS to do that. Wasn't for me. So I'm like, well, what did I learn over the, you know, previous 20, I think I was 27 or 28 at the time, 28. What did I learn through all the years of school I did? I was like, well, I learned how to learn. So it's like, if I can learn how to do school, if I can learn how to do bivariate ANOVAs and statistics, like I bet I could teach myself how to do winemaking.
Right.
And that was what I did. So it's like, there were books like right behind me, Principles and Practices, Roger Bolton. I bought it off Amazon. We had the internet by then. So I bought this book on Amazon. I started reading it. It's just like it's like winemaking, the basic winemaking textbooks. Yeah. You know, I was fortunate enough to have a solid background in chemistry from high school, which is about all the level of chemistry I needed, was AP Chem. And yeah, I just started learning, reading it. I'm like, I can do this. And then asking questions, over the previous, 5, 6 harvests I'd worked, I'd made friends in the industry. And that's kind of how I approach it, as being a journeyman or a tradesman or a craftsman, because that's how I took it on. My journey in it being like, I'm going to learn to do this. Like, you don't have to go to school. School's cool and everything, but like, I'm not in a position where I would want to shortcut the learning process of it.
So
So
did you
that's
have
really what
it,
got me going.
do you have a mentor at all? Like,
Yeah, I have a number of them. That's the cool thing. I've been collecting mentors along the way,
right.
as I've gone, and it's been really cool. Yeah, a gentleman by the name of Chris Rusi has probably been one of my. He's like my big brother in winemaking. He's the big brother I always wanted. No disrespect to my biological older brother, but no, Rusi took me under his wing like early in my career, and he's just always been a resource for me. He's the winemaker at Comstock Wines out in Dry Creek. I highly recommend him. 5 out of 5 stars. Great wine, smart winemaking. I learned so much from him. It's been really cool to have that
That's
relationship.
cool.
And over the years, I worked at 9 wineries over my career. I had an opportunity to work in Australia.
Yeah.
I've learned something from all the winemakers that I worked under. I've learned 9 different ways to do the same things, which is pretty cool.
So
9 different approaches.
So
So
the
there's been a
key
lot of that.
is to be open to learning, right? Not thinking that you have it all figured out, but the key is being open to learning and understanding how you learn. It sounds
Absolutely.
like, because it to me, obviously I'm not a winemaker, I'm in the industry, but like winemaking feels so like not only like intense, but like difficult. I feel like it's so many moving parts, and granted, like a lot of, if you got good grapes, you have a great base. But I would be it's super intimidated to try and like, yo, I'm gonna go make some wine over here. Like, absolutely not.
Absolutely. I was scared. I was scared as shit the first time I did it. Like the first time, I wrote out a proposal for an experiment to my boss. It was Ames Morrison at Medlock Ames Winery back in 2010. I was like, "Do you trust me with like a quarter ton of Sauvignon Blanc to do this skin fermented Sauv Blanc experiment?" And I like wrote out the procedure, and I was like, I was so scared, being like, I overthought everything. Like it was, it's like anytime you do anything for the first time, and it was like that. There feels like there are all these things, and then as you get into it, you start doing it. And I was very fortunate to have some success. The experiment turned out quite nicely. I learned a lot from it, but you gain confidence with every step of the way. And now I'm going into my 20th harvest. This will be my 20th harvest of my career this year. Pretty
Yeah.
wild, and this is my 12th for Bodkin wines and my 20th overall.
Yeah.
So I think about the things that I saw the first time, and as like a rookie winemaker, and writing the checks to do it all myself,
Yeah.
it was hugely intimidating. It was daunting, but like as you get used to it, you get more comfortable with it. You start to see things differently and fall into a groove. And now it's like, I don't say it gets easy, but with a lot of planning and foresight, you can minimize a lot of the kind of confusion and chaos during the year, which is a really important part of it.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations on 20 years. And the key here is to do it scared. I tell people that all the time. Do it scared.
Yeah,
Just do it. Do it scared.
just do it.
Like, just do it.
Like,
Well,
history is
wait,
written
is
by
that
the
Nike?
victors, but
Just do it. Nike doesn't say that anymore. Didn't Nike used to say, just do it? Just do it.
you're gonna fuck things up. You're gonna make mistakes. You gotta
I
ask
thought
dumb
that all
questions.
the time. To this day, I still thought that. Like,
I ask dumb questions still to this day. There's no such thing as a dumb question as long as you ask it once. But I was never afraid to do that, and that was one of the things that kind of with the upbringing that I had. Being raised in a very traditional Scots Scandinavian household. There's also very religious. That was the other thing, was I grew up in a non-drinking household, like on top of it all.
wow.
Yeah, that's why it's not called Christensen. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was alive at the time when I started it. And she passed away 5 years ago at age 98. And like the third glass of wine she ever had in her entire life was actually one of mine. She finally got on board with it.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
beautiful life story. Oh my
It is.
God. Like, I'm so grateful that you are like actually opening up and sharing this with me, like in us in this community. Because I think it's really important. Like that's what the point of this whole community is, right? For us to be able to be vulnerable with each other, to share our growth and our triumphs, but also the, you know, the times that we fucked up, the times that we failed, the times that, and you know that you're safe here, right? You don't feel any kind of way. You don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to do this, and the other. I just think that that's so important. And I have two more questions before we move on from that. Do you feel like you got a lot of pushback for, you know, the first Sauvignon Blanc title because you're Black? Do you feel like if you were white, you would have got that pushback?
You know, I feel like I think that yeah, definitely.
Okay, you can say it.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, because I don't fit the prototypical mold of someone who looks like a winemaker. Like my resume isn't prototypical, you know. But the cool thing about wine is this is the fucking results based universe. Yeah. Like you put up results or you don't. Like who you are and what you did and where you came from doesn't matter. Like you just judge me 750 milliliters at a time. Judge me by my vintage. Judge me by my products. You know, and you know that's what it comes down to. So I didn't fit the mold. I didn't fit the pedigree. It was a very lofty claim. It was one of those things that was like so huge it seems like unbelievable, but put up the results, you know, like people haven't done it. So it was a huge part of it. You know, I was younger at the time. I think I was 30 years old. You know, when I made the first wine as a nobody, like people were like, people always call bullshit. They auto hoax. I mean, they're like, oh, you prevent someone with a fact that just seems too big to be true. They go, oh, that's a lie.
Oh my God.
This is the fake news era of life.
Yeah.
You're like, no, that's
so anybody who is interested in the Sauvignon Blanc, Chris will be at the Wine and Culture Fest BT Dubs with the Sauv Blanc. So you will be able to taste it there. Any other question, and you know, we can get to this at the end as well. You can answer some of the questions in the chat, but I did see mentoring come up a couple times. If you have the capability to mentor, again, you're in a community of people who are looking at you right now, very bright-eyed, like, and I can look at this, I can only see one screen and I can see how inspired everybody is. So I just pulled up the chat. I pulled the chat window and like, oh dude, yeah, I do. Mentoring has been a big part of this, you know, especially since, you know, as I've gotten more comfortable, you know, in this, and it's something that I have the time to do now. You know, I've set my life up, kind of my business up for it, you know, is where I'm at with it. I enjoy it. You know, I'm super into it. I have mentorees. I'm always looking to help people in any way that I can. Because I don't know that I wouldn't have gotten this far if people didn't, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, like take an interest in helping me, like along the way. Like nobody does this by their own, you know. And this is a safe space. And then I don't know, this is how I like to tell my story. Like I'm not going to be up here and act like I knew from the beginning. I came out the womb ready to make wine. This has always been my goal in life. It's never been that way, you know. Yeah. Like honestly, the reason why I even started the brand was because no one would hire me to be a winemaker because my resume wasn't this, that, or the other thing. It's the same thing with certifications, right?
Yeah.
Like, I had why we all feel so intense about certifications, because we feel like we need that to even get into the room. It's the same thing. And when you don't go that path, you have to fight through a whole nother set of things. But the key is, again, to do it scared, and you don't have to follow, you know, these paths that are set out in front of you, because they weren't set by us or for us. So
yeah, no, it isn't. It's set to keep people who have like heart and merit down. You know, gatekeepers. Like, oh, don't even start about like 3-tier and distribution, like that whole side of everything. You know, being a small brand, but yeah, it is. It's just kind of, you know, that was a weird thing, you know, like especially in the wine industry, it's like a bunch of band kids who have power for the first time. No disrespect to kids who are in the marching band.
Oh my gosh, if you say no disrespect one more time.
Let me make sure there'll be some mad band kids in the chat at me. But it's like people who have who've been given power for the first time in their life, and they don't know how to use it, or they use it in ways that are exclusionary. You know, mm-hmm. So I'm definitely here to break that down and help people in any way that I can, because you know that's what's got me, you know, to where I am today. This isn't just me. This isn't never been just me.
Well, perfect, because I'm going to hold you to that, and we'll be back to that question, because I'm giving out your information to everybody.
I dare you. I dare people.
Everybody go get your information. All right, let's jump into wine number 2 because we're whittling down on time here. I know y'all are all interested, but let's talk about wine number 2. It's your red blend. Can you give us a little rundown on it?
Yep, the red
There
one.
you go. He dropped his email in the chat, by the way.
There it is.
You didn't happen to see it.
It's like Chris at Bodkin Wines. Like I'm not super easy to find. There we go.
So what's the deal with this wine? This red blend?
The hill and the vale. So this is a name I've used before in other wines. It's a combination of hillside vineyards and valley floor vineyards. Hillside vineyards giving like structure, tannin, smaller berries, more vine stress, typically a little bit windier, more concentration of flavor. Valley floor fruit, typically better aromatics, more easy drinking, more fruit forward. So the hill and the vale. It just kind of sounded medievally. So I was like, we're gonna lean into that. But hillside vineyards, valley floor vineyards, because there's this whole thing in wine where people like are cluster select, hillside only, like valley.
Can you explain that a little bit for people who are not, privy to what hillside and valley side mean? Very quickly, can you explain the difference?
Hillside fruit people talk about. It's typically the vines are like on a hillside, which tends to be really rocky. The roots don't go down as deep, the berries aren't as big, the tonnage is down. You have a greater ratio of skin to pulp, so the fruit has more concentration of flavor and tannin. Valley floor fruit, it's on the valley floor, typically carved by rivers, it's closer to water, there's a higher water table, you're going to have bigger berries, somewhat like gets a little bit warmer, there typically have to be a little less in tannins because there's a bigger crop load. And you'll also have a tendency to get a little bit warmer, a little bit more aromatics going on with that too. So it's kind of a balance between, structure, between like the heavy lifting, like thunder and lightning. It's the two kind of like diametrically opposed ideas, the hill and the vale. So I kind of wanted to show that off and flex a little bit. So let's make this wine. It's a combination of the both because mixed is beautiful.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I know, right?
Now he's making this an inside joke.
I know. I got to.
And I'm not going to bring up that conversation.
My mix is beautiful.
It is. It absolutely is.
Everybody every day of my life.
All is mixed. Believe it or not, we're all mixed. We're all mixed. We're all different cultures, backgrounds, all of that stuff.
All different shades, all different kinds. Like
what's the mix? What's the mixed blend? What's the blend?
It is 53% Zinfandel, 37% Barbera, and 10% Muscat Canelli, which you just had. So
wow, that's the insert. How did you come up with that? Explain.
Oh, I came up with it because not every wine I make turns out great. Not the first time, like here I am, 19 harvests deep in the game, and it's a natural process. Things don't always go your way. Make enough wine, you can find ways to do it, and sometimes you gotta get creative. So I had one lot of Zinfandel that came in. There's a lot of burr damage on it. It came in very high bricks. It was very sweet. It had problematic fermentations. It was a lot of Zinfandel. It was one of the components in this wine, and the fermentation stuck, and the volatile acidity went up, which is a vinegar ostensibly. It's acetic acid. So the wine started to have this distinct like vinegar smell to it. It just wasn't that good. And I'm like, man, I paid good money for these grapes. It's close. It's not like
I'm leaving here with something. Ain't that what Denzel said? I'm leaving here with something.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, it's close, but it's not like I wouldn't feel good bottling it by myself. It didn't really, you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, it's good enough. But like, I don't live a good enough lifestyle. Like that's not, like, good enough isn't good enough for me. Like other people's good enough. It's like, I got to do better than that. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. The part of me that's very grew up in a household where we were taught like to be very objective about your behaviors and what you do, to be painfully self-aware. This is good, but it could be better. That's how I grew up, like, hey, I got an A. Well, what held you back from getting an A+? Like, oh, geez, this is good, but it could be better. There are ways to improve. There's always ways to improve. Like, that's how I grew up, and that's a big part of who I am. This, as much as that sucked at the time. And I've unpacked that in therapy, true story.
I mean, we
And
all.
it's like, help me be a better winemaker. When I look at my own work, when I say like, this is good, but it could be better. So
Mhm.
I looked at like, how could I make this wine better? Because I don't think this is completely busted. There's hope in here. There's an opportunity to elevate. So I end up having a few gallons of rosé of Zinfandel and Barbera. Not left over, but I made a tonnage actually came in heavy on one thing. And so I was like, I've got this, I've got that. And I put the two together and I'm like, this is cool. This is like a lighter red. It's very medium bodied. It's very drinkable. Like I pulled mine out of an ice bucket because I like it with a slight chill on it.
As everyone here has said.
Yeah. It's just crushable. And I was like, this is kind of this new thing, this trend in the industry, like where people are doing more chillable reds. And as someone who is very sensitive to wine tannins and has a tendency to lean towards making lighter tannin wines, I was like, maybe this is the year I actually like commit to the process on this. And I said, well, I've got the Zin here, it's this high VA. I've got this very low VA rosé of Zin and Barbera. Like, what do I put two of them together? And I was like, this is cool. Like, this is good. This is close, but I wasn't like super in love with it at this point in time. I made about 600 gallons of it. So I had at that point in time, I had like 300 gallons of high VAs in. I had 300 gallons of rosé, and I'm like, we're close, but I still get this distinctive, like this little wheeze of sourness, of a little bit of like McDonald's sweet and sour chicken nugget sauce. I love that shit. Best part of having kids is having McDonald's again. So it had this little thing, and that's how I will always associate VA and wine, is like McDonald's, like sweet and sour sauce. And I was like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, we're close. And I was like, I think I've got one barrel of muscat. And I was like, well, what if we put a little razzle dazzle, a little Salt Bay move on it? And it was like, oh,
I see.
hurry. And it was just enough. Like the little bit of muscat in there gives it this really high tone, that kind of fruit profile that comes off in the wine as being like peaches and nectarines, which just kind of masks that last little bit of the VA. Like it works with it, not like against it, but it works together with it. So it shows it off. So it kind of incorporates that into the flavor profile and gives it a little aromatic lift behind it. And I was like 10% muscat and we're done. Like Mike.
Dope.
Yeah, from something that I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it today. Let's see what we can do. So, sometimes, are there such things as mistakes? No, but they're learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And this opened up the door for me to make this chillable red wine. Much like the fact that the only glass I could find due to the glass shortage was all flint. I ordered all this glass for another project actually, back in August of last year, and then glass prices and its scarcity went up, and I had this lot. So like, well, what do I got? I got clear glass bottles, and I was like, well, might as well make a translucent red and show off that color. So
perfect.
it's a couple unintentional factors,
right? Just like morphed into like this perfect storm.
Yeah.
So what's your process when you're choosing vineyards you work with? Are the vineyards sustainable? Are you the one that's overseeing the fruit picking? Like, because we all know that fruit is super important. That's the base of it. If you don't have good fruit, you basically don't have the wine.
No, I mean, I pick vineyards first based on need by how many tons I need of each and every grape. So I know how I kind of have that idea going into harvest. I do a spreadsheet every year based on what my needs are, based on what my needs are for the clients and the projects that I work on. Bodkin's about 15% of what I do. The wine I make is about 15% of it is labeled as Bodkin. 85% of it goes out to other people on projects, which is really fun and rewarding. That could be a whole other Zoom itself, is like the other side of the wine industry. Contract winemaking, bulk wine projects, private labels. But it kind of starts out based on need, and then it comes down to relationships. Like I want to make sure that I'm working with growers who are solid people, that they're going to do good work. They're conscientious growers. I've spent my life learning winemaking. I'm not a great viticulturalist. I never pretend to be. I understand how grapes grow and all that, and have very limited knowledge. But I rely on my growers to produce the fruit and to be conscientious and diligent farmers and good people. And it's something I've really gotten plugged into over the past few years. Also, is making sure I'm working with people that are diligent stewards of the earth. So we're really leaning towards sustainable and organic certified vineyards. People are taking care of the land, and also people who take care of their people. Like that's become another big thing that I'm working with, folks who pay a fair wage to their employees, that are working with vineyard management companies that have good reputations for labor practices.
Yeah.
Because that's such an important part of it, because if I'm not really super dialed into that, then, I'm kind of being in the, I'm being complicit as a buyer, being complicit to, people getting
Right.
their
You're
rights.
participating in the harm.
I'm an
Right.
enabler.
Right.
And it's like, I can't be out, I can't be out here talking about the things I'm talking about and like, oh, I'm down with supporting people if the people I'm buying fruit from aren't supporting their people,
Right. That's
So,
the key
that's become a really big part of the equation for me, moving
that's
forward.
super dope. The human capital key.
Human
A lot of
capital.
people skip over the human capital. They, it's just looking at the product, what they could get for the product, but the human capital. That's super dope. I told y'all he was a dope human.
It's also like I'm making sure that I'm paying a fair amount for my grapes. I'm not grinding my growers down where they're going to want to cut corners and they're going to do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, what do you need? What's your money looking like? Like, I want to make sure that there is, that it's very much a two-way relationship for everybody, like that's such a big part of it when establishing like longer, term relationships. There's one vineyard I've bought from since the beginning of Bodkin. They had like 1.5 tons for sale. Like they're the only vineyard that would sell me grapes back in 2011, and now I buy 60 tons.
Right. So,
I buy more. I
tell people all the time.
Yeah.
That people only support you when it's popular to do so. And then it always comes back around though. Like you pay attention, you take care of people.
Yeah, you get back what you put out. Like this is a very small industry, and that's the other thing about it, where it's like, this is so much bigger than just 1 year and all that. And it's like sometimes things don't go well, and it's like, I'm not going to toss a whole entire relationship out, over one bad vintage. Like we're in this for the long run, So.
Well, so guys, if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. We're about to move into that phase. I just have 2 more questions for Chris, and you going to have to answer them quickly because we're at the end, and I don't want to keep people too much longer than an hour. I'm sure we're going to go an hour. But you talk about reviews in your bio, and I'm curious. Like we just talked about certifications. We talked about how different paths. Kind of going out of the positions that were put in front of us. But reviews is definitely one of those things. So how important are reviews really, or are you just using it as a catalyst?
I mean, it was something that I used initially to kind of drive attention to the brand as a form of outside validation. It was kind of cool to get into that and kind of prove my legitimacy in my existence, early on. Like, you'll talk, you hear some other people, some of my peers, other winemakers will talk about all the scores they got and the point scores and this, and I'm like, that's like someone's opinion. Like, fuck other people's opinions. I ain't got time for that. Like, I know if I did a good job or not. Like I've had some wines that I thought I shot the lights on that were kind of panned critically, and then there's some that were, that I was like, that wasn't my favorite, and it was like, oh, this was great. So it's just one person's opinion, like no disrespect to critics or anything like that. They have a job to do. They're journalists. I get it, but it's not like the barometer of how I measure my own winemaking or measure my value in my career. It's just kind of part of it. It's something you do as part of like winery performative theater. Do you have scores? I'm like, yes, I do. And that was really important the first few years of getting established and finding distribution, all that, and getting the name out there. But 11 years going on over 10 years in the game now, it's like people know what they get with Bodkin.
Right, exactly.
It's not as important part of my business at this point in time, and it's not a barometer by which I measure my own efforts. Like I am my own harshest critic, and things. There's nothing that anyone can tell me about my wines that I haven't even thought 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Or 10 times more critically.
All right, so let's get into some questions. First of all, were you excited about 40/40? 40 under 40?
It was funny to have this like come off the conversation where it was been like, hey, I don't care about scores. I don't care about press. That is the one piece of press that I actually wanted. As soon as I found out it existed, like I wanted to be part of it. And like, I think I got inducted into it. Like I was like 39 years old in 139 days. it like came at the tail end of it. So I was super excited to have that because that was like the one piece of like of like media attention or coverage that I really wanted. You know, that when I found out that I was like, I kind of felt like I checked a box, you know, for me in my career when I got the email on that. It was it 17th of June. I remember that.
Well
I was hooking up a pump to the tank, and I'm all like, damn. Yeah, no, that was cool. Like that felt like that was a real accomplishment, or to get acknowledgement like on that level was like, it was very meaningful.
Yeah.
And not to say some other stuff I've gotten wasn't, but that just hit different. You know, it was unusually special.
I'll reserve my comments. All right. So earlier, this is the questions from the chats about BT Dubs. I'm done with my questions. Earlier in the convo, you mentioned that you intentionally identify as mixed race.
Yep.
I work in a wine shop where folks are always looking for Black-owned made wines. So now I'm wondering, do you want your wine to be presented as Black-owned made or mixed race? Sorry, the questions are covered, so it was scrolling.
I think I found that one too, and I'm like, you know, I mean, I identify as mixed race, but so much of race is how other people identify you. And you know, the way I look at myself and the way other people look at me, I'm okay if that doesn't always match up. I'm honored to be considered an African American winemaker too, although I do identify as mixed race. So yeah, I'm proud to be that. That is part of who I am. And yeah, I'm honored to it, you know. So I believe in, you know, there can be micro fractioning down on that, but no, I'm honored to be included as a Black winemaker. Like, very much. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. What's the best way to support small minority-owned brands like yours outside of buying the wine, of course?
Post about it on social media. You know, this is kind of the world we live in. Ask about it in your wine stores in your area. You know, if people ask it, it gets easier to have distribution to it. So go to your biggest stores, being like, "Hey, carry Bodkin," and then, you know, post about it on social media. You know, follow me on social media. Like that is the best kind of like non-capital way to support like any business. So
is the importer, who imports your wines?
I work with a number of different distributors in a number of different states. So what any state in particular a person can follow up? Let know if wine's there.
I mean, yeah, you can definitely drop it in the chat if you have that direct question. You know, it's just like, it's not on the back of the bottle, I think. Mm-hmm. So people were interested in maybe picking up the wine for online retail, but need to know your also, you can also,
if you're looking at picking up for online retail, then email me. I'll get
shout out to Happy Court Brooklyn, Happy Court, yeah. Shout out to Happy Court. Vodka's over Black on White. All right. Let's see the questions. Is there a tasting room, or do you have any tasting events where you pour these wines outside of the Wine and Culture Fest in 2 weeks, which I'm expecting to see all of your faces at? Questions.
Yeah, there's no tasting room yet. I have goals. I have goals for one. Hopefully in the future, down the road, in the not too distant future, we'll be in a position to have that. Just because there's been such an interest in the wines where it's like, I feel like I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. And, you know, I think it's also, you know, kind of where we're at and focus as a brand. That's something I'd like to see happen, you know. Yeah. Like I'm
oh my God, would it be like
that want to come and taste my wine?
No, but would it be like medieval? Like, would it be
no,
like
no.
medieval dinners?
It would be, yeah, it would not be like that jousting place, you know, medieval. It wouldn't be like that at all. No, the aesthetic would be much cleaner. I've already designed it in my head. Like it would be very minimalist. Because
I was looking for some jousting.
I don't want to take the focus away.
Chris, you know,
I don't want to take the focus away from the wines. That's okay for us.
All right, let me see. I'm trying to get through some more of these questions. Are your wines distributed in New York?
Yes, they are now through with Jenny and Francois selections.
Cool, perfect.
We are finally in New York.
Okay, so I'm assuming, are you in Washington, D.C.?
We're coming to Washington, D.C. with plant wines. So that was a new market we're in, kind of by way of Jenny and Francois. So we're coming to D.C. One of the cool things you can find, there's another brand out there that I make a lot of wine for. It's a natural wine brand. It's called Where's Linus. You can find these wines in like 44 states. People are smiling and nodding like, yeah, we can get those. But yeah, I'm the winemaker for that brand in conjunction with Jenny and Francois, who is the importer based out of New York. It's been a really cool opportunity to get to do something that was so different than what I do from Bodkin, like doing like fully like organic grapes, like spontaneous ferments, super minimalistic natural winemaking. It's a really cool project. It's like a really fun extension of what I do.
It's good too. Really good.
Like it's yeah, it's just really fun, you know, like Bodkin, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's cool because I really love making wine. Like I'm so fortunate to have found something I enjoy as much as I do, and have had some success and had the success at that I've had. And I'm always trying to challenge myself as a winemaker, like always be growing. Doesn't even matter what you're doing. But if you're not challenging yourself and getting better, then you're going backwards. So taking on some of these projects to do these really kind of challenging or different things that are outside the beaten path of Bodkin have been very exciting for me, like as a person. Also have an opportunity to work with some really cool people, you know. I think someone put that in the chat. There was like not being able to get a job as a winemaker to making wine for other people. It's really fun and exciting, you know, because you get to share the joy of the process with other people who are new to the business or, you know, already in it. And it's just kind of a cool extension of it. It's just positive energy. It's good vibes. So
vibes.
Yeah, I know. When I was in California, it's done it to me. I'm talking about vibes and energy and all that shit now.
Chris. All right, so I think let's settle the question because I'm getting a lot of questions about the states that you're in. What states are you not in? It's probably easier to go that way.
States.
20 seconds to answer this question, by the way.
Oh boy, dude. I mean, though I can probably tell you the best states to find me in are California, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Minnesota, Iowa, New York, Massachusetts, Florida still needs a little bit work, you know, in that state. But we're coming to DMV now, which is pretty awesome. Like that's coming in. I'm really excited about that. I'm feeling strong about Georgia too. I know, right? Like finally, Georgia.
I know. How long are we working on?
I know, right? Like I think this is finally happening. It's one of those states you gotta be careful. It's a franchise state. They have really business unfriendly laws in Georgia as far as but no, right. Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana.
Thank you so much. All right. Do you understand or know your influence in the wine space?
Do I know it?
Like, do you I get that question. Do you understand the power that you have in the space? I think it's more so.
No, like it's funny you mentioned that because I've become more aware of it over the past few years. You know, before I really didn't. I didn't really think much of it. You know, I'm like, well, what am I? Like, you know, I'm like, I'd kind of sold myself short, I guess. And then, you know, really coming in 2020, I realized that like I do have an audience. There are people looking at me. Like there are more people looking at me than I kind of ever had realized. And it's just not coming from a place of vanity about it, but it became apparent, you know. And that's actually one of the things that got me really much more comfortable talking about race. You know, I'd always want to be judged by my wines and not thought of with that. But I'll tell a story here. Like in 2019, this was kind of the eyes open moment for me. I was invited by my distributor to the Oklahoma State Wine Forum, which is this like food and wine event put on by the hospitality school at Oklahoma State, right? And gosh, it's fucked up. But they had like this $1,000 a plate dinner. There was like the gala event for it. And I pull up to check in, you know, they have this reception. It's like, you know, there are a couple hundred people there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Chris Christensen of Bodkin wine. It's like, oh yeah, you're at the diversity table. I'm like, diversity table? And it's like, yeah, table 32 in the back by the door. Table of 10.
What?
And all the African Americans, there are 10 of us, people of color here. And we're talking like a donor, like an alum donor and his daughter who's going to the law school. There were 4 people from the university. There was Alicia Blackwell Claver, the som. There's one white lady at the table, and she was a master som from Denver, right? And I'm sitting here being like, they put us out here in the cheap seats. And I'm kind of getting like, that's fucked up. It's fucked up. Out here, worst table in the whole room, far away from it, by the door. And I'm kind of like in my own head getting like, this is like offending my sensibilities, right? And I'm like, say something, Chris, don't say something. And then they kind of start dinner and start talking to the people at the table, and they're like, oh my God, like the other people there of color at the table are like, it's so great to see somebody in the industry. It's so great to see another winemaker. It's to see a winemaker of color, a brother out here doing this. And I was just like, I felt really stupid at that moment in time, because I looked at it so like, man, I feel like I've been so slighted here, but then I realized it meant so much to see me here as an African American making wine, that this is the best place for me to be, because my presence here means so much to everyone else here, that the world is so much bigger than just me in the way that I see it. And that was when the light went on in my head, where I'm like, I do have a platform. People do want to see this representation. And this was April of 2019. And that was like a really big thing for me, where I was like, I didn't know I meant this much. My existence meant this much to people in this industry. And it was a really big moment for me. And I'm like, I want to talk about this. And that was what really kind of got the ball rolling for me about being comfortable about talking about race and ethnicity and my wine and my story, and being able to share it as candidly and as honestly and as sometimes brutally honestly as I do. So that was like a huge thing for me. Like that was the moment where I realized that the world of wine is, and my role in it is bigger than I originally kind of anticipated.
And I also think that on the flip side, that there's something to be said about being grateful just for getting into room and accepting things because of that gratefulness, right? Like, I think that we fall into that space a lot instead of demanding what we deserve. We deserve to be in that room. So I don't believe in congratulating water because it's wet. If I'm good at my job, then I already earned my place there. I didn't earn my place because I'm Black or this is that and the other, right? And then if you're bringing me into the room because I'm Black and you're putting me somewhere I want us to kind of come out of that space where we're just so happy and so grateful to be in the room that, we're allowing them to gaslight us.
Absolutely.
Into feeling like, oh, just be happy to be here. It's like, no, I deserve to be here. You be happy. Now treat me the way I deserve to be treated being here, and my level of, priority in this space. It is not because I'm Black. Y'all gotta be effed up. But that's just me. So you better.
No. I agree with you. Like, there's still kind of part of it. And that was the thing that had me fucked up off it, because I was like, why am I like, you have all these seminars about people who are like, the new California wines and like cool up and coming brands. Like, why am I at the diversity? Why am I talking diversity seminar? Like, I'm so much more than my race, too. Like, I so happen to be a person of color, but like, I still made America's first sparkling Sauvignon Blanc. Like, I make wine for a lot of people.
Put some respect on your name.
Wine, like, put some respect on. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, there's so much more going on than just that. In Bodkin land, and it's like I'm fighting like hell to be part of those other conversations that I rightfully deserve to be part of.
Right.
So that's the other part of it. Like, I'm not done with them, but like I'm so much more open to all this too. Which
all right.
Cool. Like, why be like known as a Black winemaker when I'm, a very well established, progressive, and well recognized winemaker in general in California right now. So I sell myself short. I'm many things, and
I'm gonna coach you. Don't worry.
I know. Help me. I need.
I'm good at coaching people. Listen, I went to South Africa.
Thinking once again, like,
I over there is like raging now. This is why people be.
I gotta think bigger. Like, I sell myself short. That's the downside of like having humility.
Right, we're gonna do some fire questions, Chris. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I don't want to keep people here for like 2.5 hours. But I do want to try and get through a lot of questions. All right, so we're gonna do some fire questions. Would you ever move back to consider moving back to Iowa?
Maybe to help affect the vote in that state, but my life's here in California. My wife is a lifelong Californian. She couldn't hang with it. So yeah. I don't. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have a problem with it. There's some interesting things going on there, even viticulturally, and immunologically. The largest appellation in the country in terms of square miles is actually runs through Iowa, the Mississippi Valley, Upper Mississippi Valley AVA. And there's some people are doing some interesting things there with making sparkling wine from hybrid grapes, which is interesting. But I don't know. My life's here in California now. My family's here. Gotta stay put.
What would you say is the most important thing for a new winemaker to learn, to know, learn, or apply? Chris, 30 seconds, Chris. I'm timing you this time.
Objectivity. The most important thing to do, to like understand understand that you don't know things and when to ask questions, and understand that not every wine you make is going to be great, and be able to assess your own work and look at it objectively and not get carried away by I made this, it has to be good, or I made this, it's terrible. You have to look at your wine for what your wine and things you make for what they are. Judgment, face value, objectivity, bar none.
Great.
Absolutely most essential.
Trent will be working at Happy Cork on Friday. If y'all want to go see Trent, she's a New York chapter member. I wish we agreed to hear people should not marginalize, literally putting us in the corner. And even in that corner, you can have a ton of impact. Exactly. I don't believe in congratulating workers. Oh yeah, I don't do wet water. Like, move along. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give someone who wants to get into the winemaking process?
Send me an email. First up. Send me an email, Chris at Bodkin.
There you go. Yeah, we just happy to be here. Crumbs for the birds, and we ain't that. Yeah, Etty, I like that. Crumbs for the birds.
Crumbs for the birds.
Crumbs, and we supposed to be like, oh my God. Okay, bye, Nicole. Mommy duties. I hear you. I got my child in bed early. She's been down here a couple times, but I feel you. Bye, Trent. If you didn't leave yet.
Hi, Janelle.
Off the rocks in Baltimore.
Whoa, what's just happened?
What's in Baltimore?
Oh, the Bears Lions off the rocks.
Oh,
Sally.
Thanks, Shane.
And I think that is it. We are 15 minutes over, which is good because this was a really great conversation. I will see you in about 2 weeks. Let me see. Let me do nobody else. Yeah, everybody said hi and thank you. And Chris, you my boy. We have been grinding this out for a few years, even before the 40-40 thing. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful to have had this conversation. I'm grateful to be able to share your wines, with everybody, and have, also be able to support you in this community. You definitely drop some knowledge, you drop some gems, and yeah, I'm just happy everybody got to meet you and get to see this other side of you. Remember we did the BET thing?
Oh yeah.
I'm glad people get to see that side of you, because you are so quiet generally and behind the scenes. I just thought this was so important to bring you to the forefront. So if you guys want to meet Chris in person, again, he'll be here. Although didn't get your plane ticket confirmation, but we'll talk about that.
No, I'm there. I'm there. I'm pulling up. I'm pulling up before things on Friday. No, Saturday. So.
Yeah. What events? The Wine and Culture Fest,
Friday and Saturday. I'll be there. I gotta hit the cookout.
You gotta hit the cookout.
I gotta get the rice. I'm actually.
Oh, you know what I got for the cookout? I think I'm getting a double Dutch. I'm getting double Dutch. I'm serious. We got like spades. We got, dominoes. We got some other, games.
I gotta learn how to play.
I'm getting some hula hoops and some double Dutch.
Do some double Dutch. I'm down.
It's gonna be lit. And we got the DJ from Public Enemy and Cypress Hill DJing. I'm telling you.
DJ Muggs. No, I'm excited. I'm actually going to be debuting the sparkling rosé too at the event. So
whoa,
the new Hotspur drop is coming. It's like,
speaking of rosé, we're doing a rosé of the year at the awards brunch this year. So
I'm probably too late for this entry. The glass shortage had me all fucked up in the game. Like,
no, we're doing it. We're doing the judging on the Saturday.
I'm pulling up with Rose. So
I'll be sending you an email, Chris, so you can sign up.
I'll get it sent. I'm
Does
excited.
anybody else have like one last question before Chris jumps?
It's not a question, Chris, but it's more of a thank
John
you.
Wesley, man, good to see
Yes,
you.
sir.
Dude. Hey,
Yes,
congrats
sir.
on graduating, my man. Like,
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, I don't share this story often, but Chris is the reason why I'm still in the wine space. I got a chance to speak to Chris 2 years ago, pre-pandemic.
around town.
And I sat in on one of these conversations, and he was an inspiration to also see another Black man in the wine space. And he sent me a very exclusive bottle of the Sauvignon Blanc, which I'm not opening ever. So when he blows up, it'll be worth a lot of money. So Tahiirah, we might have to auction off that bottle at the next 2025 Wine and Culture Fest.
Listen, I have a 2014 that he doesn't make anymore, and there's no more in the country. Like,
Boom.
2014
Boom, look at that.
it's not happening. I can't believe I was open that.
But Chris, I want to say thank you personally and publicly for your inspiration in my wine journey. Your story has been amazing. It has kept me for the past 3.5 years in the wine space. So thank you, my brother.
No, dude, like, no, thank you, man. Like, just, I'm really, I don't know, honestly, I say, if I'm really proud to see what you've done and the progress you've made in what you're doing, not just in the wine industry, but also spatial photography and everything else you have going on, man. Like, it's just always good to see out there. You know, I think as Black men, we always got to be out there cheering each other on. And when you're seeing a brother out there doing things that are awesome, you know, you got to dap him up, man. So
Appreciate you, bro.
Really proud of you, man. Like,
thanks, Chris. Appreciate you.
Like, sky's
I love
the
a
limit.
good love fest.
Hey, nothing wrong with it. Like as men, you know, we're kind of told we shouldn't congratulate each other, but like, hey,
I love it.
no way. You're doing
All
that.
right. Well, good night, everybody. Of course, always let us know if you need anything. Thank you for showing up. I hope that you enjoyed the wines, and I'm sending all of you love. As always, Chris, I will chat with you probably tomorrow, and thank you again.
Awesome. Hey, thank you very much for having me. This meant so much to me to be here and tell my story. Thank you very much for giving me the space to do this. I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Oh, good night, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right,
See you
y'all.
there. See the ATL.
Good night,
That's Jay.
everyone.
Night, everybody.
Sally, stay on for 1 second.